everybody. Welcome to another edition of Weighing In with Andy Hamilton and David Mirkitani. I'm Andy Hamilton from Track Wrestling, coming to you from the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum in Waterloo. Joined on the phone by David Mirkitani. Lots to talk about today, David. As always,
yes, sir.
Tuesday. Last chance qualifier, some regional training center coaches. You got an announcement to make. Alex Thomsen made an announcement today. Northern Plains and Central Regional beat the streets. Another stud going to Penn State. And then look at 157 and 165 and how those weights shape up for 2018. Where do you want to kick this thing off?
Wherever you want, wherever you think. I mean, I guess maybe start with Alex Thomsen. I mean, that's a big announcement. Just saw it pop up today, and he's going to end up going to Nebraska, right?
Yep. Three-time undefeated Iowa State champion from Underwood is headed to Nebraska. A guy that, I got to watch his career unfold, when I was at Des Moines Register. In fact, first time that I got a chance to see him live and in person was the state tournament his freshman year. And he came out first, I think about 45 seconds of his first match and put 11 points on the board and scored like used about four different holds to score takedowns. And next match, he wrestles a returning state champion and took him down right away and kicked him out for an escape. And I'm like, man, this kid is a lot of fun to watch. And he put points up a lot of different ways. A kid that extremely talented, both in freestyle and Greco, cadet finalist a couple years ago in Fargo. Double All-American last year in the junior division, lost his first round match, if I'm not mistaken, and wrestled all the way back to place fourth. So Nebraska certainly getting a good one. Not a huge surprise to me. Back, the summer after his freshman year, we had a deal at the Register called the Iowa 8, where we identified the 8 top prospects in the state. Alex was one of those, and asked him about college possibilities at that point. Nebraska was high on his list. I know he talked a lot about Brian Snyder coming over and doing a camp. I don't know if it was at Underwood or whether it was in Council Bluffs or where it was, but he developed a pretty good connection with Brian Snyder there, and certainly Underwood right there along by the Quad Cities, real close to Lincoln. So good get for Nebraska. Probably going to be a 33, 41-pounder in college, and sets the Huskers up. They have a pretty strong set of lightweights there when you factor in Jason Renneria being there as well.
Yeah, Chris Williams, all those guys. I mean, we just had Manning on a couple weeks ago. That's a big get for them, like you said, and he fits in that lineup nicely. So, I mean, they're going to have a really young team next year, I think. With the exception of their All-American at 57, for the most part, they're going to start freshmen and sophomores. So, it's going to be interesting to kind of see how that shakes out. I mean, they've got leadership there and obviously a lot of leadership in the room, but that's a young team. And when I got a chance to talk to Manning, you could tell, he goes, I know people don't think we're going to be very good, but we're going to be a lot better than people are giving us credit for. So, which, we talked about that, not privately on the podcast, how, people don't expect much, but they traditionally do a really good job. And they've got a team that could be a really solid dual meet team. They get some of those guys to just, frankly, just get better, and they could have a really good team again like they normally do.
Well, while we're on the topic of Alex Thomsen, he rolled through the Northern Plains Regionals, both styles, I think pins and techs all the way through. Beat some really good dudes along the way, too. He scored a fall against one of the West twins. I get Drew and Bryce West mixed up all the time. But the three-timer, in a battle of three-timers from Iowa, Alex Thomsen pinned West in the semis in freestyle and then turned around and teched Jake Gliva, two-time Minnesota State champ, folk style nationals champ. He teched him in the finals. Just looked like a guy that was possessed this past weekend out to prove a point, and, man, he looked really good. As did a couple of eighth graders, David. We got a chance to see two of the most highly touted junior high kids in the country. And you know, I don't follow junior high wrestling all that closely. I like to wait until
Sure.
these guys are at least taking high school classes. But, man, Carson Manville, what he did, throughout the year. I mean, we had a chance to watch him way back in October at the Michigan Grappler Fall Classic, and he entered the elite division at 119 pounds and ran through some really good guys to win that tournament. And he's been on my radar ever since. And just a heck of an 8th grade season up at Shakopee, Minnesota. And he rolled through the bracket in freestyle up in Rochester this weekend, 45-0 in 4 matches. And then the other guy that's a little bit further down the list, I think ranked 7th on the Intermat Junior High list, Alex Thomsen from Michigan, a guy that won Folk Style Nationals, 145 pounds. So he's dealing with, kids that are a little bit more physically mature in some of these tournaments he's wrestling in. But, man, that's a kid that's put together, and both these guys extremely physical, extremely talented. David, kids are just getting better and better sooner and sooner. What are you seeing that is enabling guys to have so much more success now at a younger age?
I think it's a lot of things, right? Like, first of all, you got, tons of access to video, matches, ability to study techniques, coaches going all over the country to do camps and clinics because, A, they can make money, and B, they can build relationships recruiting, like you mentioned, Thomsen and the relationship with Snyder. And, a lot of these coaches are known for being able to recruit really well in certain pockets of the country. And, I don't know if this is good. I think more guys are specializing now. And, everything's smarter, right? Like, sports medicine is smarter, like cardio is smarter, like everybody is so much better. And then, you have guys like Terry Pack, Hardell Moore, Jody Strittmatter, those kind of guys. I mean, I don't want to leave anybody out. There's a ton of these guys that are running kids clubs and camps and things like that they're coaching these guys. You watch some of the scrambles, like, if you're on Facebook or YouTube, or whatever social media, they show like 2 9-year-olds scrambling like college kids. It's insane. I mean, I'm helping out 2 11-year-olds right now, and they're good. I mean, they're really good, and it's kind of crazy. Just they talk like 11-year-olds and they walk like 11-year-olds, and sometimes they wrestle like 11-year-olds, and sometimes they wrestle like college kids. So it's cool to watch, and this sport has never been for the faint of heart, and it continues to be that way because kids are getting better earlier and earlier, So it's fun to watch,
absolutely.
So it's really neat.
Absolutely. And I mentioned the Central Regional. Facundo won both styles, really dominant in both. If you go to Track Wrestling, there's a highlight package that we assembled from those 2 tournaments. Some incredible throws in there, some violent throws, some pretty high-flying takedowns as well. And both of those guys are featured in that. David, last week after we recorded Beat the Streets took place. Did you get a chance to watch it?
Yeah, I did. Not all in one sitting, but, went back and watched the matches. And really sort of the big match that stuck out to me was Chamizo and J.O. And, they said they weighed in at, the weight was 65. I think they both weighed in closer to 70, but Chamizo's so good, and it just shows you how close, especially with some of the freestyle rules, how close guys are. I mean, Chamizo wins on a reversal, which you never see. And that guy just seems like he has a gear, like he can just kind of hang out, and then you score, and then, all right, well, now I'm going to score. And that's just what he did. But it also shows that Jordan's really continuing to improve and mature, and he's in the best position he's ever been to make the world team, obviously being in the finals and getting to weight the winner of the tournament. And then, Zane really shows that his style, which normally is really conducive to college, but his pace is going to be a problem. And he's one of those guys that you think could really make some noise if he can get past Molinaro and some of those other guys. That he's the kind of guy that could run the gauntlet and still have something left in the tank at the end of the tournament to wrestle Jordan.
Yeah, and rewinding a little bit to talk about Chamizo and your point about that gear, that extra gear that he can hit. And when you rewind to 2 years ago, the World Final, I mean, that was one of the most highly entertaining matches that I've ever seen with him out in Vegas. Against Navruzov of Uzbekistan. It was. If you get a chance to go back and dig that one up, I'd highly encourage you to go do so. Man, that was a fun match to watch, as most Chamizo matches are. You're going to see some stuff that you don't see the run of the mill dudes at 65 kilograms doing. So he's a blast to watch. Certainly a highly entertaining guy. As we mentioned at the top, last chance qualifier this past weekend, some interesting stuff happened there. You get a chance to watch those? You get a chance to see those final matches?
Yeah, and some of the highlights in between. Jay Nyerman didn't win, but he certainly gave people some of their money's worth. Some of the flying squirrels and high flyers, and Bill and Ness is still hitting high flyers. And those guys are so good for the sport, right? Because I don't think they wrestle to entertain, but their wrestling is certainly very entertaining. So it's fun to watch them.
Anytime you get a Ness Laser matchup, that's certainly one to watch.
Yeah, for sure.
One you don't want to know. So, Thomas Gilman coming back from a 6-0 deficit to beat DeShazer 7-6. A lot of interesting stuff happened up there. Aymar rolling through 74 kilos. Joe Rao.
Yeah.
Joe Rao, Greco guy coming out wrestling freestyle and putting on a show out there. I think head pinch. For 5 in a row, I think.
When you saw Gilman stop that head pinch by just going flat, right, against DeShazer, those head pinches are nasty for those guys that aren't used to them.
Yeah. Yep. Well, as we mentioned at the top, a lot of regional training center news to break down. And, we mentioned on last week's show, Mark Perry, the Iowa and Hawkeye Wrestling Club. He had a chance to speak Friday night at the Hawkeye Wrestling Club banquet. There's a video of that floating around out there. IA Wrestle, I think, had some, chance to talk to Tom Brands and Mark Perry, and Des Moines Register Chad Lystico, my former colleague, got a chance to catch up with those guys as well. And then one of Mark's former teammates, college and high school teammates, Steve Mocco, headed to Brown, New England Regional Training Center. Stephen Abbas staying in Fresno, going to run the regional training center out there. Davis, is interesting stuff, just the commitment that schools are making now. I mean, it used to be you'd only really hear about, the Hawkeye Wrestling Club and the Cowboy Wrestling Club, and then, a few others here and there. But regional training centers have certainly changed the game, and the commitment that schools are making, it's been a difference maker.
Yeah, it definitely has. And I think, different schools have different philosophies on this. I mean, I called a couple of guys that I'm friends with, and some believe that, the assistant coach or the head coach should fill that role. And then there's other programs that believe that having a separate guy, makes a big difference. I think having the RTC without a doubt is better, right? Like it gives guys a chance to train in a structured environment and the off season for those guys that want to pursue freestyle or Greco on a more competitive level than, just doing it to do it. It allows those kind of things. And, I guess to me, like the one that's on the college campus or the ones on the college campus that you've really seen the highest level of success is, Ohio State and Penn State. They're putting guys in the Olympics, getting, Olympic gold medals and things like that. And that has to be a huge recruiting asset when you're talking to kids. There's some kids that just want to be college All-Americans or national champions, and there's nothing wrong with that. But those elite guys usually have those kind of goals. And to be able to say, well, look, you can come here and get both done. You don't have to transfer somewhere else. That's I think that's pretty powerful because I think a lot of kids, that's what they're looking for.
Well, and not just that, but also the connection to the local kid. I'm not 100% certain on the rule. I think it used to be 50-mile radius or something like that can train. The connection you can make. And most of those kids grow up with an attachment to that local program anyway, but the chance to, for those college programs to get those guys in their room and get them working out with fellow club guys and see what they're all about, how they handle a little bit of adversity in training and things like that. I think that's invaluable to college programs. While we're on this topic, something that came across Twitter here just a little bit ago, Riley the Fever, the 4-time Division III NCAA champ, just tweeted a picture from State College, and by the looks of it, looks like he may be heading to train out at the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. He tweeted from Wabash Red to Nittany Lion Blue, and it's a picture of him right by the lion statue. So that's the case. One more headed to State College.
That's good. I had Cody Sanderson on Match Chat last week, and they've been struggling with recruiting, so I'm glad they finally got somebody they want. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at what point do they just run out of room there? I mean, how many, all the bodies that are coming in there, but man, what Penn State's doing in recruiting, I've never seen it done before. I've seen some power classes before. I mean, you look back to the one that Minnesota put together with Schlater and Roger Kish and those guys. Back then, I think they had like 5 guys that were all ranked number 1 at their weight class coming out of high school. And what Penn State's done with 2018 right now is absolutely absurd. Number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Seth Nevels, Travis Whitlake, Gavin Teasdale, Roman Bravo Young, and Michael Beard now committed to Penn State. David, when's this going to stop? Does it ever stop?
I don't know. And, Gavin Hoffman's supposedly still going as well. So, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, they're obviously doing a smart job of managing their finances. It's got to be something, that gets tricky. And, I assume they're probably getting guys to take a little bit less. And, I mean, maybe some of those kids qualify for aid. Maybe some of those guys just want to go there. But it is tough because those are kids that are getting big offers from other schools. And you and I spoke about this, I think it was last week, if not it was the week before, but I think it was last week tied to the Mark Perry move. It just feels like the arms race that, Penn State has set the bar, and, Iowa's going to respond, and Ohio State's going to respond, and Oklahoma State's going to respond, and, these schools are just going to keep one-upping each other and doing what it takes to win or to do everything they can to at least make Penn State uncomfortable winning. So, some of these teams are really good. I mean, Oklahoma State had 8 All-Americans last year, and everybody's talking about how the best they can do is third this year. Ohio State has a team that feels like could probably score 130 points, and they've got an Olympic gold medalist on it, and, a senior class that, with guys like Tomasello and Bo Jordan and Snyder, and they're not the favorite. So it just, the level, you mentioned it with the junior high kids, just the level of wrestling at all these levels continues to climb. And it's impressive. And, Cody Sanderson's a really deep thinking guy. You could tell that talking to him. And you can tell that he's a big believer in iron sharpens iron. And you add in these recruits and add in guys like Lefevre, and it keeps going that direction for sure.
Anything else you want to hit before we move on to 157, 165 and take a look at those weight classes and how they shape up for 2018?
No, let's talk about those. I've got those in front of me here. So, and kind of do what we normally do, just talk about who's coming back and who was All-Americans. So at 57, you've got Nolf, LaValle, Kemmerer, Joe Smith, Tyler Berger, Paul Fox, Sal Mastriani. So for people that don't have the brackets in front of them, that's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 7th, and 8th. So another super weak weight. And then you got B.J. Claggin, who was an All-American a couple years ago and took 5th. and was around a 12er, and then Jake Short, Archie Colgan, and Bethea, who were round of 12ers. Taylor Brahmani and Kyle Langendorfer were round of 16s. Colin Heffernan, Josh Shields, John Van Brill, and Casey Sparkman were round of 24. Clayton Ream, I moved him up a little bit because he was the 6th seed, had a really good season. Ended up actually being the round of 33 guy because he lost and then lost in the pigtail backside. And then guys like Andrew Atkinson, Jake Faust, Jake Danishek, and then either Thomas Bullard or Hayden Hidley from North Carolina State. You got Jordan Cutler, who missed weight here, who I'm reading will probably end up going to 65. But, I had him listed here for now. You have guys like Richie Lewis coming back off of injury. Jason Surtis will either be here or we talked about 49 last week. Freddie Stroker, we mentioned, might be here. And then you have guys that are freshmen were freshmen like Caden McWhorter, then Griffin Perriott, Evan Wick, guys coming off redshirt like that. I mean, just another loaded weight. What kind of jumps off the page when you hear all those names to you?
Well, I want to make a clarification real quick. You mentioned Mastriani. He actually is going to go to Brown University as a volunteer assistant. They just announced late last week. So you can take him out of the mix. But that being said, I think that the thing to me is can the field catch up with Nolf? Can the field close the gap at any point here? I mean, you got a guy like Tyler Berger that's rolling around with Jordan Burroughs and James Green, and we saw him make a big jump a year ago, going from around a 12 guy to a guy that had a pretty consistent season this year. Can he make another step? Can Joe Smith, a guy that had so many struggles the first half of the year and things that he dealt with, if he can get a more consistent summer and fall of training, can he make the climb? Can Kemmer continue the progress that he's made in his first couple years in Iowa City? Certainly, though, Nolf, a guy that just went 8-7 or 9-8 out in Vegas with James Green. He's not letting off the throttle, so it's going to be up to guys to go catch him rather than him coming back to the pack, because we saw him, the season he had, certainly, in a lot of years he would have been a Hodge winner, and right. People that would have, if people voted for him a year ago, I certainly wouldn't blame them for that. I mean, the season he had was unbelievable, and nobody really came close to touching him. So can someone jump up and push him? Because we saw it a year ago, coming out of New York City, I didn't know that anyone would really push Zane Rutherford at all, that he'd have any close matches. Right. He had a couple, and then he got it cranked back up in the postseason and ran through it. But will someone make that jump? Because there's a pretty good gap between one and the field right now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and you got some young guns in there, like we talked about, like Freddie and some of these other guys that are, Hayden Hidley. I mean, there's some young kids coming up that it'll be interesting to see. But it's Evan Wick. So, So if you go to 65, you got 7 All-Americans back from this year. Vincenzo Joseph, Isaiah Martinez, Logan Massa, Chandler Rogers, Daniel Lewis, Chad Walsh, Brandon Womack. So that's 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. So again, just an insane weight. Then you have McFadden. Yeah, right. And then you have McFadden, who was 6th a year ago and redshirted. Your entire round of 12 is back. Valencia, Steyer, Drew Hughes, Wanbeck. Your round of 16 is all back. Deshaun Campbell, Joey Gunther, and I put in / Alex Marinelli there. Austin Matthews, Yoante Mejias, and almost all your round of 24s, Branson Ashworth, Keelan Torres, Luke Silverberg, Andrew Fogarty, Cole Walter, and then Brian Hammond, although Daniel Bullard might be there as well from the NC State. Then round of 32 guys like Lorenzo De La Riva, Keaton Subject, who had the big win over Joseph early in the year, Sheldon Wright, and then you can't forget a guy like Chance Marsteller. I mean, because if everything's right, he gets to wrestle, and he's awfully, awfully talented. So the depth at these weights continues to kind of impress me. What I think, obviously, part of the big story here is where will Imar wrestle, and what do you think about the rest of this weight?
Yeah, I'm with you there. That was the first thing in my mind is what color singlet is Imar going to be wearing next year? Will he remain at Illinois? Will he follow Mark Perry to Iowa? Will he go elsewhere? I don't know. I think those are going to be questions that will be answered here in the next month or two. I mean, he certainly has to graduate first. That's the first part of the equation. But, this to me feels a lot like 184 a year ago. Where we had the matchup that we were waiting for all year long with Gabe Dean and Bo Nickel, and then you had other guys in there too, a couple returning NCAA finalists. Guys like Tim Dudley, you had Miles Martin making the jump up. I don't know that too many people are going to migrate into 165 like 184 a year ago, but man, this just feels to me like one that we're going to be talking about all winter next year. And you got some guys hanging down there, Daniel Lewis and Chad Walsh that started the year pretty highly ranked. Chad Walsh, super dangerous, a guy that had Imar in a little bit of trouble at the Midlands. Chandler Rogers, unbelievably entertaining. Anthony Valencia, a guy that, the performance he put on out in Vegas, out at the Open, boy, that was a barn burner that he had with Daringer. And can he make a jump in his second year? Well, will we see him at 165, or will ASU move some guys around? And then Marinelli, we saw, Iowa drag that thing out until January before making the call to keep him in a red shirt last year. But it's going to be a lot of fun matches, not just, those first three with Joseph, Martinez, Massa, but, certainly, dragging this thing down to almost 20 in the rankings. You've got guys that,
crazy, right?
Candidates, you got guys that are, 15, 16 All-America candidates that, All-America candidate caliber. But the problem is, it's like, where do they all fit in? There's just aren't going to be a lot of openings, in my opinion, because these top 4 or 5 guys are about as solid as it gets. And then you got some guys like Valencia and Steyer that, going to be knocking on the door as well. Keyshawn Campbell, ACC champ, moving over into Ohio State's room where he gets to roll around with Bo Jordan and, Miles Martin and company and gets to train alongside Kyle Snyder. Going to be a terrific addition to Ohio State's roster. And I think it's going to be good for Keyshawn as well. So,
yeah.
Interesting stuff, David.
Yeah. And, last year was the first year of doing the rankings officially for track. For me, I think we're someone that we both followed wrestling for a long time and kind of had an idea. But when you do these rankings and you just look at how many guys are coming back, and there's going to be freshmen that place next year. They're going to place high. They always are. It's amazing, like, just the depth at some of these weights. I mean, obviously we have 4 more to talk about and a lot of movement and things like that. But just so far, how many All-Americans are coming back? And I think it was pretty close to 60 when I did the count. I mean, you're averaging like 6 guys a weight that have All-Americaned either, the previous year or at some point down the line. The depth is staggering, right? I mean, it's just, and then you have guys who are going to just bypass dudes. I mean, that's crazy too. So, yeah, it's super impressive.
Anything else you want to cover this week?
No. Well, yeah, I've been talking to Coach Tahura. Yeah, talking to Coach Tahura at Cleveland State University. And we're going to do that next year right there on campus. They've got a historic gym there, and we're just working out the details, but it's going to be the Ohio Border Brawl. Again, we're going to split the proceeds to benefit the Cleveland State University Wrestling Program and then the Extreme Couture GI Foundation again. And I think you and I were just talking about this privately, how, Ohio borders several states, but, you know, the really, really deep wrestling states are Pennsylvania, Michigan, and then Indiana. And, I mean, there's going to be, I mean, I looked at Intermat's top 50 high school list, and I think 25 of them are in those 3 states alone. So I think the entire duel could be made up of top 100 kids, which would just be incredible. So,
wow.
You know, we're already starting to crack some eggs and work on that process, but I'm excited about it. The wrestling will be super high level, and Coach is going to try to talk to some of the guys from the Nittany Lion and Ohio wrestling clubs about, you know, maybe wrestling some of the pro matches. So I know, you know, Track partnered up with us in that the last time, and, you know, I know they will again. It's going to be a really cool event. So I'm going up to meet with them in July and see the gym and kind of see the layout and everything else, but I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to really be a neat event.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And one more thing before we sign off. I don't know if you caught this, but we talked a while back about South Beach duels and looking at the teams that are on the list right now. Lehigh is on there. You know, we mentioned at the beginning, Missouri and Cornell were the headliners, but Lehigh is on the list. North Carolina is now on the list. South Dakota State is now on the list, along with Binghamton, Franklin, and Marshall. Kent State, Michigan State, Ohio University, Rider, and SIU Edwardsville. So that event continues to grow in popularity. It's going to be a fun event down there in Fort Lauderdale, December 29th and 30th, to watch some of those duels go down. So anyway, David, pleasure as always.
Yes, sir. Always my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, David Mirkitani. Thank you for listening once again to Weighing In with Andy Hamilton and David Mirkitani. If you want to download and listen on the go, you can do that through iTunes, through the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.